Hi, I'm Dr. Gaby Cora, and welcome to my show, Dr. Gaby's Take, Make Life Interesting. There could be an amazing campaign based in the United States, and many companies try to just translate those into Spanish, and they think that the way that they're going to approach them is exactly the same way that they approached it to the U.S. market. What would you say to that?
Well, I think that people have the misconception that by just using language as a differentiator will work. And it's not a question of translation, because it's language and culture are very much intertwined. And so translating sure will communicate some sort of a message, but will it be relevant? Will it resonate with that Hispanic person? Basically, I think probably not, because language is very, it's cold, cut, and dry. But culture, if you mix it up with culture and you really look at it from the Hispanic perspective, you look at, we have a methodology that we use when we look at the start of a marketing campaign called LLT, Lifelong Lifestyle Tendencies. And we look at where that Hispanic consumer is at the point that they encounter that service or that product, etc. For example, you take banking. You know, if you're a recent arrival from Mexico, for example, you've been here 3 years or 2 years or something, and you never had a bank when you were in Mexico, and you don't trust banks because they've devalued the peso, and you can't trust them, and I mean banks are not trustworthy in Mexico, so they get here, and everyone's telling them, hey, you need to save. They're saving, but where are they keeping their money? They're not keeping their money in a bank because they don't trust the banks, and so we have to talk to them where they are here emotionally, and we can speak to them in English and we can speak to them in Spanish that's translated, but if we speak to them in Spanish, knowing where they come from and knowing what they've experienced and knowing how they feel about banking, then we can make a real impact on them. And so the same holds true with so many different products and services. Some companies do it right, some companies do it wrong. And it's a big improvement over the past 25 years, of course, but I can think of many, many examples of worst practice.
So let's say that that some companies are a step ahead and they want to focus on the Hispanic and or Latino community, and they now think that approaching their Mexican group is exactly the same as approaching a group from Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. How would you explain to them that both cultures, even though they may be Hispanic, are very different?
Yeah, and there is a way to speak to all Hispanics with one message, with one voice, because there are enough similarities that you can address everyone with one voice. Now, if you have a small budget, that may be the way you have to do it. Now, you may have to look for ways that you can take, the importance of family, the importance of food, the importance of music, the importance of, how important the elderly are to the community, etc. And you take that and you can come up with a message that speaks to all. But there are far more differences than there are commonalities. But budget also has a lot to do with it, because if you're a Coca-Cola, you're going to speak to Mexicans, and you're going to speak to Puerto Ricans, and you're going to speak to Cubans, you're going to speak to Argentines, and you may even go so deep with the Mexicans that you speak a different way to the Mexicans in Houston than you speak to the Houstons in California, for example. And there's so many differences, and you look at markets as well. Los Angeles and a Miami, for example. In Los Angeles, you have a huge population of Mexican natives that have been born in the U.S., and you have Mexican immigrants as well. And their education level is lower than, for example, the Miami group, because in Miami you have the South Americans, you have the Cubans. And most of those folks have come from countries where they've had a political problem, like Cuba, like Argentina and Venezuela. So they come here, many of them are college educated. On the other hand, you go to the other coast, and in Los Angeles, you'll find that, you know, most of them come from the, you know, C-, D socioeconomic pyramid, and they're coming here with no education, no English. You know, they may have had a 6th grade education, and they're laborers. They're more blue collar, and they're workers. So you know, how do you speak to both of those people? People who are more sophisticated in technology. You know, it's you may have to do them differently. You may have to speak in separate voices to them, but with the same message, because you are who you are. You know, Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola.